is 19 hours 30 in Guyana, and you are tuned into the radio with a difference. Yes, that is Kaiju Radio 99.1 and 99.5 FM. It is time we enter room 592, where we unleash the truth. This evening at the helm of the program, Dr. Yog Mahadeo and his co-host Leonard Gildarie, and their special guests this evening, Bishop Patrick Findlay, Mr. Mohamed Raffik, and Ossie Rogers. Good evening, all.
Good evening, one and all, and good evening to our viewers and listeners all across Guyana and, of course, the wider world. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Room 592, where we unleash the truth. Let me thank Kevin Smith and Joshua for doing all the technical work behind the scenes to make our discussion who come from different parts of the country. If one were to also include United States as a part of our country. But we have three persons who represent three facets of our community, of our country per se. I'd like to first introduce Bishop Patrick Findlay, who comes here not just as a member of the religious community, but who comes as a social activist, a person who's also been doing advisory work, care, and also he is a former PS, so he has had previous experience working with the public service. We also have Mr. Mohamed Raffik, who is the president of the Central Corentyne Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Raffik is a businessman, and of course he has had years of experience, not just at the helm of his business entity there, but in the Berbice area, working with and collaborating with the entire community. And then we have our brother Ossie Rogers, who comes all the way from the United States, representing the voice of the diaspora in tonight's discussion on Room 592. I must say, ladies and gentlemen, before we start the program tonight, that we had also invited Mr. Gobin Harbajan, who is, as you know, the PM's rep in Berbice, because we wanted to have a discussion across the political paradigms. Invitation for his release was sent to the office of the Prime Minister, but that release did not come. And so we apologize for not being joined by Mr. Gobin Harbajan tonight. So, ladies and gentlemen, we also expect to be joined at some time in the program by Mr. Sayes Gunraj, Commissioner Sayes Gunraj, who is going to give us an update, end of the week update on what's happening at the commission level at the Artichoke Convention Center with the recount. But let's get our discussion going. Gentlemen, and to my co-host Leonard Gildarie, welcome to Room 592. Leonard, I notice you are wearing red. Is that because you have taken a stance tonight? I hope not, because I'm going to ask.
You gotta ask me the question, man. Don't make comments like that. Well, you can ask me, and I can tell you that today I'm gonna wear a red, and Monday I'm gonna wear green, and then the next day yellow. I don't know if you have an issue with that, but that's what I'm gonna do.
You have a freedom. You have a freedom of colors, freedom of association, and freedom to do what you want to do, my friend. So, ladies and gentlemen, we get our discussion going. As I introduce our three guests here, let me say that, gentlemen, tonight we want to have a very open discussion. We want your perspective of these elections, where we are, where we have been, and where you think we are heading. And I want to start with Bishop Findlay first to ask him, sir, you come here not just from the background of being a permanent secretary and having worked with politicians, so to speak. You also come here as a voice, a very respected voice of the religious community. So bring it all together, sir. What, in a nutshell, are your thoughts of where we are as a nation with these elections?
Well, good night, Yog. Good night, Mr. Gildarie. Good night to the other two esteemed guests on this program. I was hoping that you wouldn't ask me first, but since you did, like everybody else, you know, we're in a dilemma, if I put it mildly, where we have had elections on 2nd of March, and to date, we have not been able to install a government to run and to rule this country. Given the fact that we're faced with this pandemic and all the other things that's happening, it would have been nice for us to get this matter over with and to, as early as possible, to install the government of the people's choice, credibly, transparently, and roll with the business at hand. Incidentally, that has not happened yet, and as a result of that not happening yet, we are in a massive uncertainty. We know that we have the words of the GCOM Secretariat, and we have been watching, everybody has been watching at these exercises as they unfold daily, and we have been watching all of the objections and everything that's happening, and I guess it's just, it's frustrating the least,
right,
to all of us. It's very frustrating to, I believe, to all of us on either side of the corridor today, and I feel everybody really wants this matter to be dealt with expeditiously, especially in the event of Suriname having their elections on Monday, and they have already have the results of that election, and it's really mind-boggling. And my prayer and hope is that we will get over this matter expeditiously, and we can move on.
Thank you, Bishop. Mr. Raffik, I want to come to you next. You are in the business community, but before I hand you the mic, sir, for your thoughts, Leonard, guess what, my friend? 82 boxes today. 82 boxes today. That's a good number. But 34, as at the end of today, are yet to be tabulated. Remember, you have the recount going on, and then it goes to the tabulation center where so there is a backlog of the tabulation, and one would have thought that things would be put in place, but you know what? They get all day tomorrow, and they're playing a catch-up kind of thing here. Leonard, what's your thoughts on this, the pace at which we are going, knowing that now we have been extended to June 13th?
Well, I believe we have a couple of days to play around with. What we have to pay very close attention to, and if you would have been paying attention from what would have transpired from March 2nd, anything can happen and anything will happen. So we are looking. I'm very positive. I do believe that what would have transpired in the past, I believe that people are very positive and they're paying very close attention. The only thing that I could see that it would probably derail this is maybe a tsunami or something. So that's not going to happen. And so we are going to have a declaration by June the 16th.
Come on. Well, we had a tsunami a couple of weeks back, right? The tsunami's
I am very positive, my friend. I'm very positive.
The tsunami's name started with M, but I'm not gonna say, Mr. Raffik, I know your name starts with an M too, Mohamed Raffik, but it's not you. It's not you we're talking about, sir. Mr. Raffik, you are the president of the Upper Corentyne, I believe, or the Central Corentyne Chamber of Commerce. What are your thoughts, sir? How does these elections put you in a perspective of where you can speak on behalf of your people?
Well, good night to you. Good night to Leonard, and good night to the other two gentlemen. I must say that you guys have made room 592. You have given it a life of its own, and congratulations to you, and congratulations to Kaito Radio.
Thanks.
Now, I've listened to Bishop Findlay speaking just now, and he's from England. And I've heard, heard him talking about his frustration and being mind-boggled. Now, what should I say? I have been living here every single day. And what is very important to note, we're not talking about March 2nd. We are talking about December 2018, in the event we have forgotten that. Mm-hmm. We are talking about December 2018, the entire 2019, this country had no budget. And we had all kinds of things happen. Finally, after all the duplicity, after all the whatever it is, we said, okay, March the 2nd. Now, for me personally, let me tell you for me personally, if I thought, look, man, we finished with this whole thing, and now March the 2nd, and we have these elections, and the result is going to be here, and everything is going to be okay. Gentlemen, if I thought that March the 2nd, everything after the election would have been okay, I would never have thought in my entire life I would have seen what took place in this country from March the 2nd. Today is day 88, double 8. And now we are hearing that June the 16th we should have a declaration June the 16th. Gentlemen, it has been extremely, extremely frustrating to be in this country as a businessman and to see what is going on. The entire year 2019, everything has been on hold. No businessman would have ventured or dared to venture into any aspect of any investment. Everybody was waiting and waiting until this whole thing was supposed to be ended, and here we are now. I can only, just like Leonard, I can only say to be positive that come December the 16th, we have a declaration, and we have a declaration of results. And I hope you're not going to have any surprises with a declaration of anything else. I am expecting that. I have been there at the convention center 2 days this week. I've been looking at the process. I'll be going back tomorrow and going back next week. And I hope to go every day until the last box is counted.
Good.
Right?
But Raffik, if I may call you that, sir, because I know everybody calls you Raffik.
Yeah, right, sir. Yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah. So not many people would know. Leonard, do you know Mr. Raffik has been a staunch, I use the word has been very respectfully, has been a very staunch supporter of the AFC. So Mr. Raffik, he does not disguise the fact that he wanted and he supported a change, but he, like everybody else, is calling it how he sees it. And Raffik, we'll come to you just now. Ossie, you are a media personality, and let me just correct you, Pastor Bishop Findlay. He would be happy if you would deign him a dual citizen and give him the rights of Great Britain, but the gentleman is of, from, and for Guyana.
Correct, sir. Born and bred.
Yes, thank you. Ossie, let's come to you, my brother. What's the feeling across the diaspora? And Ossie, I want you to comment specifically about the congressman, his statement, because I want to come hard at you with that statement, given what we are hearing in Guyana. But what's the general feeling across the diaspora of these 88 days of this Guyana elections?
Thank you very much, Dr. Yog. And to the panel, I want to say thank you, guys, and to Kaicho Radio. And let me quickly say to some of the people that are watching, I see someone commented that I'm in a hole. You know, I came into my basement hoping that this would be, you know, the better place to be, but then I realized that the lighting and so is bad. So, and my first time using Zoom, so I'm apologizing to you guys. I'll make sure that I get it right next time. All right. Yes. So the other thing, one word I would like to say as it relates to the diaspora, and it is that we in the diaspora are disappointed. Disappointed. We are concerned about our country and its direction. We are embarrassed because it seems as though countries younger than us, smaller than us, even bigger than us, can conduct an election and can come up with a result reflecting the will of the people, accepting that result and moving on. Unfortunately for our country, we have seen a political party that is in government that refuse to accept the will of the people. So in the diaspora, our only word that we can come up with is disappointment. Well, not the only word, but one of the words that I can come up right now with is disappointment, and I'll use that for start.
Sorry, thank you, Ossie. I want to come right back at you, Ossie. Here is what. Not so long ago, Congressman Jeffries, I think it was, made some remarks to what I call a private a discussion, because it was not on any of the media houses that he sought to come and have that discussion on. However, it did create some airways, and one has to accept there are the divides. There is the divide, sorry, in the political landscape that is called Guyana, and there are deep divisions. Congressman has his right, as anybody backing any political side, and wants to express that right. So he obviously has his right to express what he wanted. If you gentlemen and ladies in the US do not agree with the congressman's statement, what have you done to counter it?
Well, first of all, I want to say, Dr. Yog, that the congressman, it is my humble opinion that he was set up based on his friendship with or his work, because they're both in Brooklyn, in a certain community, and he has worked closely with Reginald Burke as it relates to Caribbean people in that aspect, that neighborhood or that community. So because I believe that he trusted Mr. Burke, he went ahead on Mr. Burke's Facebook Live. I think he was set up, and he was not given an opportunity to understand what was happening in Guyana and pronounce based on what is happening, but just based on a political slant that was given to him by a political operative here in the United States.
Mm-hmm. But you would have to admit, Ossie, the gentleman made his statement and he stands by it because he hasn't retracted it, he hasn't corrected it. Therefore, it stands sacrosanct as of today.
All right. So what I want to say, the first thing that we have to understand, which I do not think that think Mr. Burke and some of his people wanted Guyanese to understand and know. So I want to make it clear. Mr. Hakeem Jeffrey, Congressman Hakeem Jeffrey, does not speak on the behalf of the government of the United States of America. So what he has said is not an official statement issued by the United States government, nor is it an official statement issued by the Democratic Party of which Mr. Hakeem is a part of. That was his personal opinion. And like I said, I do not think that he was briefed completely on the entire situation, and he just talked off the top of his head in that occasion.
Good. But I want to push back at you still. I'm not asking for a comment. I want to push back at you still. If you don't agree with his comment, if representations would have been made, because what I do know, I can tell you this, I think Congressman Meeks and others did, subsequent to that Jeffries release, did make a release that was quite opposite to what Congressman Jeffries would have said. And Leonard and I would have been on the same show, and we alerted everyone that the only people who were speaking on behalf of the government of the United States of America locally would be the head of the embassy here, the U.S. ambassador, who did speak on a number of occasions. So thank you for that. Thank you for that, Ossie. Pastor, I want to come back to you in terms of, I'm sorry, putting you on the spot like this, because I know you're revered in the religious community too, sir. But the religious community has itself been silent. I want to put you on the spot, sir. Hindus, Christians, and Muslims are employed in GCOM. Hindus, Christians, and Muslims, and all religions, they hold up their scripture and they swore. They took an oath holding up their scripture. We all see what has happened. I'm not saying one particular religion or another. I'm saying that religious people held up a scripture. Pastor, what's your comment to that?
Let me first of all make a comment on Mohamed Raffik's statement. Mohamed Raffik, when he spoke, he talked about December the 16th.
It's June the 16th.
And It's June the 16th. So I hope our viewers would not go away with that thing. December, oh my gosh, that's crazy. That is utterly crazy. It's June the 16th.
Was a
Now,
slip, yeah.
if I understand you, if I understand the question, you're asking the entire complement of GCOM staff, not only the GCOM secretariat, but you're talking about every PO and APO and polling clerk, whatever, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. Yes. What we're hearing now, I mean, everybody from every religious strand or strain, they held that sacred book and swore that they will do what is right, only what is right, for what would bring out credible elections. I don't know what went wrong, if anything went wrong, mind you, but it's really sad to listen to the narratives coming out of the observations and the different political parties. I would be, and I know some really good Christian people, some Christian leaders who were presiding officers in this last election, and I feel for them. I feel for them with all the disparaging remarks that are made now that they were sold out or they were bought out and whatever. I don't know. I'm really speechless in this matter of the accusations that are being leveled against these people. Not only are they from religious fraternities, but the people that served in these capacities, especially in the more affluent capacities of the PO and APOs, they were people who were learned teachers, headmasters, and mistresses. I one time served as a presiding officer, and years ago that was. And when we do this job, I can tell you, when we do this job with all seriousness. There is not, you can't, there is no occasion for you to do anything what we call jiggery puggery, because you have the polling clerk, you have the other representatives there, and so I don't know what happened, man. I really don't know what happened, and I don't know if it's credible. I don't know if it will hold up to any scrutiny or anything. But what I'm hearing now,
but Bishop, if I may push back at you, the rest of Guyana knows what's happened. For example, I'm not going to call any names, but sir, we would have seen declarations made on fictitious numbers. On this recount, we are seeing that those were blatant lies. And those blatant lies could have only occurred on a breach of 84.2 of the laws of this country. So it is now very, very clear that people who swore to uphold the Constitution and uphold their duties, they have lied. And my reason for asking you this is maybe to call on you to give us some counseling, because the religious community has been very, very, very silent.
Can I comment on this point
Sure.
before you ask me my question?
Sure.
The bishop said he doesn't know what happened. But I can tell you, I know what happened. Nothing happened. Now, I was an observer in Region 5 and Region 6. I personally visited over 50 polling stations on March 2nd. It grieves my heart to see the accusations coming out against the officers. And I tell you something, all these were young people, most of them, 98% of them were young people. And I was most impressed with the way they went about their job. Very, very professional, very patient. They did not take any sides. From the time you walk into the polling station as an observer, you could have seen that. And on top of that, I personally spoke to every single polling agent when I visited those stations. I asked, do you have anything to report? Have you seen anything untoward? And there was nothing. Those people did a wonderful job. And
So
there is
Raffik, who were you,
absolutely no way in the world.
Mr. Raffik, who were you observing on behalf? What party, what team did you represent?
The PSC. We had over 50
Okay.
observers in
Got it.
Region 5 and 6 on
So
behalf of the
did
Private Sector
you
Commission.
see any ghosts?
Well, sir, if I see any ghosts,
Brother
I thought ghosts only come out in the night time. I don't know ghosts come out in the sunlight.
Ghosts coming out anytime there, Mr. Raffik. But quickly, as you on the floor, sir, I want to ask you. We've seen statements coming out from the various private sector organization, private sector commission, the Georgetown chambers, and so over time. Why is there not a collective statement from all the private sector organizations, GCCI, PSC, the Rupununi chamber, and of course the Berbice chambers? Why is that not happening?
Look, Leonard. Every press release that is put out by the PSC, we are part of it. Every single organization in this country, we give our stamp of approval. But that doesn't mean to say we of our own cannot come up with a release of our own individual organizations. I have wrote about 5 letters to the press representing the views of the Central Corentyne Chamber of Commerce individually, and we have also have statements coming out of the PSC that we have supported. I hope that answers your question.
Okay. Raffik, I want to come right back to you. So there is an allegation being made. I'm glad I didn't realize you were an observer before you came on here. I wish Mr. Harbison had joined us. But as I said to viewers and listeners, he had asked me to write for permission for his release, and I did not get that. I did not get an acknowledgement even of the request. But Mr. Raffik, there is an allegation that people had multiple ID cards, that people who were not supposed to be in the country, votes were cast for them. We have seen the EU ambassador, another observer in the process, said it was impossible for that to have happened. I have voted, and based on my experience at the polling station, I voted. It was impossible to impersonate someone. What's your thought there, Mr. Raffik?
Well, let me say, I would say it is emphatically impossible. I wouldn't say impossible. I would say it is emphatically absolutely impossible. And let me tell you something else. In representing the PSC in the observation process, almost every single polling station that we went, we either met up with the Commonwealth observers, the CARICOM observers, the Carter Center, and the EU observers. As a matter of fact, let me tell you something. I have observed elections, having worked as a presiding officer in 1992, I know the system well. And I worked in quite a few elections thereafter as observers. And I'll tell you, this is the first election in this country, more than 1992, that I have seen so many observers. There was not a safe station that myself and my partner went to that we did not meet up with observers from other international observers at those stations. So
that is true. That is true. And I can attest to that because I myself, I was part of a couple of teams, and this is, Leonard, you would know this, they had some media, overseas media from Europe that were here, and I had to give an interview on one of them on election day. But I want to say something very quickly. Ossie, I want to come to you with this one. There is this narrative, I see Mr. Baker has posted a comment here, that the PPP SOPs, where did the PPP get their SOPs and so forth from? Mr. Baker, Mr. Gildarie and myself, yours truly, we have never used the PPP's SOPs. What we have done, Kaiser News took photos of the SOPs that were on the fence. Stabrook News, all the media houses have their SOPs, and those were the SOPs. And if you want, we throw all the SOPs in the garbage. But, sir, the SORs are matching those SOPs that you guys have discarded. And that is the truth, undiluted truth. So you want me to speak the truth? I'm telling you now, the SORs are matching the SOPs. Wear your glasses, sir. Ossie, this comment about the SORs now matching the SOPs, isn't it an indictment of all those who have hidden behind the skirt of can't release their SOPs?
Yes, and I'm happy that we are on this subject because I want to first respectfully disagree with Pastor Findlay and Brother Raffik. Pastor Findlay, Pastor Findlay said he doesn't know what happened. Brother Raffik said nothing happened. I am gonna go on record as saying
I
that
believe Pastor
something.
Raffik is being very diplomatic tonight.
Yes,
But go
yes,
on.
yes. I do, and I understand. I understand. So, with my answer, you'll see where I'm coming from. I am saying that something happened, and it happened in region number 4. You, Dr. Yog, has refused to.
Leonard, we are getting this internet issue again.
It is very, very strange. It's very, very
Yes,
strange.
Ossie, we lost you there. The last thing we heard was region 4.
Yes. So, like I was saying, I'm seeing now that my internet is unstable, which is crazy. I've never had that in my entire time. But anyway, so am I good now?
Yes.
Yeah, you go ahead.
So I'm saying that something happened. Brother Raffik said nothing happened. I understand Brother Raffik's position because nothing happened anywhere else. But something happened, and it happened in Region 4, and it was perpetrated by Mr. Mingo, who has acted in a criminal way to alter the will of the people. And to slant it and his instructions. That is what happened in Region 4. Now, let me go on to the question that you asked me with the statement of polls and the statement of recount. With the statement of polls, one thing I want to get clear again. The PPP does not own the statement of polls. The statement of polls were generated by GCOM staff, handed to every concerned party that was there who accepted it, and also observers and whoever. And everybody has the same statements of polls. So the PPP does not own statement of polls. The PPP has statement of polls that was given to them by GCOM staff at the respective polling places. The APNU AFC has those same statement of polls. So my whole, and this is my personal opinion, I do not even think that we should have gotten to the place where we needed statement of recount. That being said, we are there now. The statements of recount are matching the statements of polls. And like I said before, I do not think that we actually really needed this to see what Mr. Mingo did. Mr. Mingo acted in a criminal way to alter the results of the 2020 election in favor of the political party that is in power, and it's criminal, and he needs to be brought to justice. And I'm pretty sure that I speak on the behalf of all people who has respect for law and order when I say that Mr. Mingo's conduct is criminal and we demand justice.
Correct. And also, I'll say one more thing on the last thing on the SOPs, and let's put it to bed. Look, anybody who wants to dispute somebody else's SOPs, Mr. Gildarie and myself, we have how much? About 200-300 SOPs. If you want to dispute it, bring yours. Bring yours, and let's dispute it. Compare one to the other. Let's let Commissioner Sace Gunraj in, please. Bishop,
Hey.
I want to ask you this question, sir. I know you're being a kind gentleman tonight. Sir, if Mr. Ossie Rogers does a wrong, you can pray for his forgiveness because he didn't know that he did a wrong. If he intentionally does a wrong over and over and over again, your comment, sir.
Anybody. Look, if we're talking in forgiveness in the eyes of God, God will forgive us. God will forgive us. The issue is in the eyes of people. What are we seeing right now? If forgiveness should be meted out to anybody. I want to say this. I really want to say this categorically. I don't know Mr. Mingo. I've never seen him. I'm only hearing that he is affiliated with a certain church. I don't know the guy. But Mr. Mingo holds responsibility because the buck stops at him. I do not believe, and this is my honest opinion, I don't believe that Mr. Mingo sat down and did anything there to that on the tabulation list. That's my personal opinion. But because he is the RO and the whole thing was compromised, he has become culpable and guilty, and therefore, you know, he has to be responsible. But in the back of my mind, and this is in all honesty, I do not believe that he sat there and one by one stuck out and added and deleted, as the case is showing in the SORs. All right, that's as much of that. With the same token, since the buck stops at you, then you had a choice. You had a choice to say, I am not going to do this because this is blatant. I'm not going to do this because my integrity is at stake. I'm not going to do this because I know better. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So now that the recount is there, all the time before now, when we had the SOPs being revealed from the different sectors, from the different people, when that was done, there was still that little nest in the corner that says we're not sure because we haven't seen the SOPs of the APNO AFC. That is now not necessary because we're in a process now of the recount, and the recount is showing that the SOPs that was broadcasted by the parties engaged, those SOPs are matching the SORs. So to think about anything else, it would be insignificant. Now we're seeing that what was revealed then is authentic. Amen. Authentic, given maybe just we're seeing a little variance there. But yes, but generally what we're seeing now, what we have to contend with is what we're seeing from the recount. And whatever, in my opinion, whatever the recount reveals should be accepted, and as a matter of fact, should be declared as the winner of these elections.
Last question for you, Pastor, before we go to Commissioner Says Gunraj. Last question for you, sir. In the 1980s, the Catholic Church, I mean, it's another denomination, but the Catholic Church was extremely proactive in a national role. It was outspoken against the then government and so forth and so on. The truth is that I believe, this is my personal view, not necessarily Kaicho Radio's view, my personal view is that the religious community needs to stand up and speak out, not just for the elections, but it is your followers, Hindus, Christians, Muslims, and other religions, that take an oath using the religious symbols of scriptures to do their ministerial jobs and to do other jobs in this country, which they blatantly, flagrantly throw aside. And I think the religious community should call them to bear the burden of their sins. Because, sir, if you don't, the youngsters who are looking on will say, well, the Bible and the Ramayana or the Gita and the Quran has no value because these men are swearing with it and they cast it away. Do I have a point or not?
You do. You're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. And those who are guilty should face the penalty of the law. I'm standing with you on that. You cannot take a note and then go back on it. Whatever you promise, whatever you ought to do, then you should do it. And you're absolutely correct, You're absolutely correct.
Thank
and I'm 100% with you. 100%.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome GCOM Commissioner, Mr. Says Gunraj. And, you know, we have missed him the entire week, not out of his fault, but it was because we had so much packed programs. And we want to go over to him for a couple of minutes to give us an update as to what's happening at GCOM. Commissioner, over to you, sir.
Good evening, Yog. Good evening to your viewers. Yes, when you said a packed week, I'm trying to figure out what day it is, and just realized it's Friday. You don't have a clue. You don't have a clue of what day it is anymore.
Correct.
You don't have a clue of
I
what day
can
it is
I can
anymore.
tell you it is day 88.
Day 88. I thought, you know what?
It is day
Too many,
88
too
and it
many
will be
questions.
a day 106 by the time you and your cohorts in GCOM ready to pronounce.
Yog, it's very unfortunate that we have to have this discussion.
I know.
You know, notwithstanding, our extension today was gazetted. Uh, we have 760 boxes to be concluded after today. I don't let me give you. We started at 8 something. We did 92 boxes. So we're at 7 something. Don't let me give you exact figures. I looked at the figures a
Understood.
moment ago, but I didn't memorize them. At an average of 80 something boxes a day, we should be done in a few
Correct.
days, under 10 days. Thereafter, there'll be the tabulation. Tabulations are ongoing every day. All of these things are subject to review if necessary. Tabulation could go on all day if
Oh,
necessary.
good.
Um, if it becomes necessary to, if any backlog arises, etc., we have a lot of time to play with that in terms of hours in the day. By the 13th of June, no later than the 13th of June, so it's on or before, the CEO has an obligation to present a report to the Commission. And 3 days thereafter, the Commission has an obligation to declare the results.
And
So
you,
there is some definition in our processes, and there is some definition as to what we have to do, and that is being done. If we focus on the minutiae, you can get bogged down with the detail and lose focus. We are not doing that. Um, at least my personal focus is on getting this job done and getting it done. As I've said, it sounds like my mantra now. Getting it done in a timely and efficient manner. The efficiency wanes from time to time because we find that various factors within and without of GCOM um, contribute to that. But like I said, we're not focusing on that. We're focusing on the bigger picture, getting the job done.
Great.
I believe that if all hands are placed on deck, and I said this morning publicly on Facebook that it now requires all hands and minds on deck, because you see some persons are of the view that all these strange views about what can happen, what cannot happen, and injecting all sorts of extraneous thoughts and actions into the process, and that ought not to be countenanced. The latest one we've had to deal with, and this is the singular thing that I want to deal with this evening, outside of giving you this update. The latest extraneous issue that we've seen raised this evening is this fact of my colleague Commissioner Vincent Alexander announcing that GCOM is somehow in the process or has embarked upon some investigation of allegations made during the process. I have sat at every single commission meeting. This morning, I was not even scheduled to be at the convention, and I was there because of ongoing, and I forgot every other thing that I had to do to be there. Participated in every single meeting, every discussion that requires my intervention, I participate in. And nothing has been brought to the commission, no evidence, and note I'm pronouncing the word evidence correctly, no evidence has been brought to the commission to support any allegation raised. And the commission has taken no decision to investigate anything, supported by evidence or not. And so that is the second position I want to, second thing. We have received no evidence. One. Two, we have received, the commission has not embarked on any investigation, whether or not we have received anything. Thirdly, I don't believe that the commission has the wherewithal, the legal authority, or any power whatsoever to conduct any such investigation of any kind in that regard. That is in the domain of the courts. And finally, if assuming but not conceding that the commission, that the secretariat has indeed embarked or taken any such steps, then they have embarked on a frolic of their own, which must be met with strong reprimand in the least and severe penalties at the other end of the spectrum from the commission itself. Because that is not something that we have discussed. And anything, the secretariat is a creature of the commission. The secretariat is subject to the direction of the commission. The secretariat is charged with the execution of the decisions of the commission. Right? And in any event, members of the secretariat, starting from the CEO, the DCO, and everyone has been saying, no, this is a commission supervised recount. But you know what? I have seen many actions taken that they attempt to exclude the jurisdiction and the direction of the commission. But that will happen. That would not happen. It will not be countenanced, at least not by this commissioner.
I want to ask you very quickly, Commissioner, are you aware of any notification or any letter that would have been sent by the Commissioner or the Secretariat to the head of the immigration to investigate 600 persons the coalition have said to be out of the jurisdiction? Are you aware of anything like that?
Absolutely not, Leonard. Absolutely not. No such information has been brought to the commission level, and we have not taken we have not even had a discussion on it, much less a decision.
So what happens to all the observations that would have been made by the coalition over the last couple of days?
Those are what they are, observations. And at best, they are allegations because so far they're unsubstantiated.
Okay.
They're unsubstantiated.
Aubrey Norton was on air this evening, I think it was, and he did say I think the numbers floated was 600. That around 600 of their apparently they receive an invitation to submit their proof. I don't know whether that can be substantiated or not, but they received an invitation to submit their proof, and they said they would have submitted approximately 600 or something like that.
But I have a very quick question. I have a very quick question for you, Mr. Gunrad, for the people who don't know. What was the whole point of allowing observations if you can't be able to fix it or to address it right at this point in time of the recount? Before there's a declaration?
My view is that this observation report has been misused. And its misuse has been condoned by GCOM. When we commenced this process, we anticipated that there might have been anomalies. You have 2,339 ballot boxes that you have to contend with during the elections and now during this recount process. That means that you've had at least 2,339 by 4, meaning 4 staff members in the least in each polling station. If you ask each one of us, if you give each of the 4 of us, and I'm now realizing Mr. Raffik is in here. Good evening, Mr. Raffik.
Hi, good evening, Commissioner. Yeah.
If you give each of the 4 of us an instruction in here, we may carry it out differently. And as a consequence, and a review of our actions may reveal anomalies. And a provision was made for that in the observation report. And that is what you see that there's this misuse, this continued misuse of this. As late as today, you have attempts to call out 200 names, 150 names. But you know what? and this is not me taking off my constitutional hat and putting on a political hat, but it's an observation. It's an observation. You see the APNU plus AFC agents, right, are not objecting in areas that they have won, their perceived strongholds, right? And you've heard Aubrey Norton say that, oh, these irregularities only occurred in areas outside of their strongholds. Right?
Commissioner,
are you telling me that they've almost 15,000 staff that work for GCOM, which includes teachers, nurses, other professionals? I'm aware that even lawyers work as presiding officers, right? Legal clerks, people from the bank employees, all kinds of things. Are you saying that there was some massive scheme to rig the elections which involve all of these people? Oh, come on.
Well, Commissioner, the question that Leonard and I would have discussed earlier today, and I would like your thoughts on it, is that if the commission were to allow a thorough investigation of all those allegations, every allegation.
Let me stop you right there. The commission has no such power. End of story.
Good. Well, great. Thank you. Well said. Well said. All right. Well, the final thing I want to tell you, sir, is that there is to answer some of our viewers here. Why hasn't the GCOM, why hasn't the commission released the SOPs? Aren't they? Is there any obligation to release those SOPs to the public? I know everybody is saying, let's move on, but they form a history.
I agree with you, and you'd appreciate. I believe it was around it was on around the 30th of April or thereabout. I moved a motion, a formal motion, moved and seconded in the commission for the release of those SOPs. And a majority of the commission, which includes the 3 government commissioners and the chairman, voted against it. I've been saying as well all week that I want to view the commission as a democracy, and as a consequence, I'm bound by the vote of the majority. But I am not restrained from criticizing what I think is a ridiculous vote, a ridiculous decision.
Well, as citizens, we can certainly go and beg the court to demand the release of those things, and I'm sure we will.
I thought you were sending Leonard to do that weeks ago.
You want me to take off my hat too?
Okay, so we have on screen here, I know you got to go, Commissioner, because you have a packed day tomorrow. So we want to thank you for that. But I just wanted you to know we have Ossie Rogers coming in from the diaspora. We have Mr. Raffik here, who has been an observer, and Bishop Patrick Findlay, who has, he does plan, and he promises us to ensure that we're all forgiven at the end of the day, Pastor. I'm sorry to say it like that. But Commissioner, thank you so much for being here. I know you have a packed schedule ahead of you, sir.
Thank you very much, Yog. The rest of your guests, good evening, and good evening to your viewers as well. Thank you for having me.
Good job.
Thank you.
Appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a wrap-up time at 8:30, so we got just 4 minutes more to go. And just before I ask our guests here tonight, who I guess we have had just a little time each to give their closing comments, and to keep it short, mind you, I want to tell you all that on Monday evening, if you recall last week, Monday, we had Sir James. Monday coming, we have Sir Ron Saunders joining us in room 592. So it will be a big, big night. Sir Ron Saunders joining us in room 592. And Leonard, on Tuesday night, we are going to have Mr. Orin Gordon, former BBC correspondent, former chief editor-in-chief of the Trinidad Express, also joined. So we have a wonderful week ahead. Gentlemen, your closing thoughts. And again, I'm going to leave our bishop for the end because, we want to close with a positive note of his grace, of course. But Ossie, your final thoughts, sir.
my final thought, I want to first say to all Guyanese, listen, with the coronavirus, the issue at GCOM, and everything else that is happening, I want to encourage everybody to stay strong and to remain optimistic, because evil will never outlast good and honorable things. So while what we see happening and coming out of GCOM might be termed as evil, I'm encouraging all Guyanese to stay strong and remember that the people in the diaspora, Guyanese around the world, are also watching, not necessarily supporters of one political party, but people in the world who believe in justice, decency, and doing what is right are all watching. And we are going to make sure that we see, we remain involved to ensure that we see this process come to an end and the will of the Guyanese people is respected. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ossie. And I must tell you that Mr. Gildarie and I are planning a diaspora night where we're going to have 2 or 3 of you members of the diaspora from the different sides of the political divide to appear on the show. Mr. Raffik.
Earlier you said I was a staunch supporter of the EFT. I would just like to say that as a regular Guyanese, I was sympathetic to their views and I felt they stood for something. And so I was sympathetic to the AFC from 2015. I supported them. And what I will tell you, what I've seen subsequently, the AFC has failed me. They have failed Guyana. And I would just like them to understand the principles that they stood for, the founding principles, and the individuals in that party, they know themselves. I would like to tell them that, look, the coalition has lost this election. The AFC who has been part of the coalition, you have lost. You guys be decent, you be honorable, and you be principled. But what I've seen from some of these guys over the past 2 weeks since the recon started, it has been absolutely nauseating to hear some of the things that they have been talking. And I would like to tell them, life will have to go on after these elections. And this has nothing to do with Indo-Guyanese and Afro-Guyanese. The PPP lose the election in 2015. They quietly vacated. And the AFC and coalition came into power. They lost the election in 2020. And they have to understand the world is not the same anymore. The world will not tolerate dictatorship and rigged elections. And they have seen that. And I would like them to understand. Let them face the situation like a man, and let them own up to the fact that they have lost. And let them quietly vacate and let the country move on. As we are facing, Guyanese need help. I've seen a lot of Guyanese in Borbies. They are hungry. Many of them don't have food on their tables. They need help from a government. And we need a legitimate government in place so that they can be able to put systems in place to help the people of this country.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Raffik. Bishop Findlay.
Listen, I want to, first of all, I want to say thanks to all the people who are working tirelessly every day at the convention center. I applaud their efforts. I applaud their struggle for democracy. And I want to say thank you to them from my heart. I also want to urge my fellow Guyanese and those who are at the helm of everything to abide by the decision of the recount. The recount would have spoken audibly, and our prayer and hope is that we will move on, we will transition. Whoever comes out at the end of these exercises in the recount should be honored, because it's the will of the people, and we as a nation, we as a people should avoid these skirmishes. Anything that has to do with disruption and anything else should be avoided at all costs, and we should accept the recount, accept the result of the recount, and move on. As we would all have said, this is not a race issue. We are together. Both sides of the divide has both East Indians and Africans, Negroes, whatever you want to call them. And so this is a minority that is creating the confusion. We love one another, and we know that we're going to get back on track. And then, in the words of the Bible, this too will pass. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone. And have a great night, everyone. And see you on Monday. Have a happy weekend, a great weekend. Good night now.
Good night.